Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. And afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Right on,
Okay.
we're here. Thank you for being with me. How are you doing?
Good, and good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. I'm sure it's going to be a pretty solid talk. The podcast is going to be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How'd you get there? How'd you know that this was the way to go? So that is what you do for a living.
Yeah, I'm a language teacher. Of course, it is at the university level. Uh, Talking about how I got there. So
One by one. Just don't worry. We'll get to how you get there. So tell us
yeah,
more
sure.
about what you do for a living. Now you mentioned English teacher at university. Are there any specifics to it?
Yeah. So right now I'm teaching at Yamanashi Gakuen University in Japan,
Nice.
and that's the linguistic program at International College of Liberal Arts. In Japan, majority of universities have Japanese students, but ours is a bit different. It's international. The department that I teach in is an international department, International College of Liberal Arts, and it has different majors. One of them is linguistics, and I teach linguistics at this department. Different courses like semantics, syntax, second language acquisition, word Englishes, sociolinguistics. So basically, that's what I'm doing right now. But before I get to that level, I also taught some language skills early on when I came to Japan about 8 years ago. I mostly taught language skills of listening, speaking, reading, writing, the normal teaching stuff that you hear from language teachers, and also testing like IELTS, TOEFL, uh, content-based learning, stuff like this. But it's about 5 years that I'm teaching linguistics.
That's pretty
Uh,
good, and it sounds a little bit like what I studied when I went to Denmark. Most of the students in Denmark are Danish because, well, duh. But this place that I was, the Oberk University, we basically were like 158 people, and there were like 50 nationalities, which was pretty awesome. The house that I was at were like 20 people from 15 nationalities. It was pretty good, and it's a good thing that you're doing it like that, because if you really think about it, it's gonna bring a lot of experience. There's gonna be memories to stay with you forever, and it's pretty cool. So
yeah,
congratulations for landing up there. It's a pretty nice place to be. And
yeah, thank you.
for the next question, so you were like walking on the street one day and you decided to be a teacher about linguistics, or how did you get there?
Yeah, of course, you know that it's not the way that people get to some place or doing something.
It was
It
worth
always
asking.
has, yes, it always has a story, and it starts from somewhere and it gets to where we are right now. Yeah, as you mentioned, it's very interesting to teach students from a variety of countries. That adds a bit of a spice to life and also to the job. But the story of how I got there, and how did I become a linguist? Uh, at first, I just was a language teacher in my country. I come from Iran,
Mm-hmm.
and I got my degree there in language teaching in Iran, and then I started teaching there at language schools, company staff, uh, and all the other places that you could think of teaching language, and also to some extent at universities there. So I started teaching language, and basically it was language skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing. And I taught there for a period of time. And you know that as when you do something regularly, you become very expert in the field and you feel good
Yep.
about yourself. But that's just to a point. When it becomes boring for you, you feel that you need a change. And of course, it's not just feeling bored. Uh, I felt that what I'm doing even though I was doing it pretty well, I was a good language teacher according to what I heard from my students, the others who knew about me. They always agreed that I was a good language teacher, but when I looked around, I noticed that I'm doing what lots of other people are doing. It wasn't just something special. It was just a language teacher. No matter how good you're at it, there are lots of other language teachers. And if you think about any other country, you notice that there are lots of language teachers everywhere. So it wasn't something special, and it wouldn't be something that make me a special person or achieve a specific goal. So after teaching for a while, I realized that I need to add to my skills. And the thing that I could think of was research, because it is through research that you know how to teach a language. And to do that, I needed to go for postgraduate studies. So I needed to get a master's degree in language teaching and learn about research and do research and become a researcher and language teacher. That would make me a special teacher, because it wouldn't be just teaching; it would also be researching and teaching. Teaching based on what you find about the way that language should be taught. So I applied to some universities in Malaysia, and uh, I went to University of Technology Malaysia in Malaysia, and I started my master's degree there. Uh, it was a pretty good environment. It was a research university, actually, and I studied there for around 1.5 years. I finished it fast. And of course, I got to be the top student there. They gave me a medal as an award of the best
Nice.
student there. And then I learned a lot about research there. That's what I wanted. And there was a huge library there. I spent most of the time in the library reading, working, and I just decided to go beyond the instructions and read more and learn about more things than just language. And one of them was statistics. Because when I started doing research, I realized that what language teachers were doing was mostly doing research and asking people who were expert in statistics to analyze the data for them and report their findings. And of course, that's a bit weird, because if you don't know the process and you don't know how they got these results, it's difficult for you to report that. But
Not to
that's
mention, statistics can be altered very easily. Even if you have all the information, and even if you know what you're doing, and even if you're familiar with the research, I can guarantee you that statistics can be manipulated incredibly easy. You just need to change a few words here and there, and you will have a total different outcome from what it was intended. And I'm a living witness to that, because I know this to be true. And I'm sure you do too.
exactly. And it took me a long time, reading a lot of books to learn statistics. So I started reading by myself and putting it into practice. Right after I got my master's degree, I had worked on statistics for a year, but I decided to continue work on it and master the science of statistics. So right after my postgraduate master's studies, I decided to go for PhD. I felt that uh, master is some sort of incomplete degree. It's PhD that completes that.
Well,
So
as Pablo Picasso said, I think it was him, so somebody may correct me in the comment section. I think he said that learning is a never-ending process. So every
sure,
degree is an unfinished degree.
right. Every degree is depends on your desire and your goal. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I decided to go for PhD. And yeah, when you do master, it's good. You learn to research, but it is PhD that completes it, makes you a complete researcher. So that's what I mean. And I went for PhD, and at the same time, I continued working on statistics, and it took me several years working on a statistic, reading books, and also starting publishing articles, conducting research, doing the analysis by myself, once in a while checking with it, the results with the statisticians to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And by the end of the time that I got my PhD, I actually mastered statistics. So it took me several years of hard work on statistics, but I managed to be a researcher who knows statistics. So now I
That's
realize that,
pretty important for every researcher. So congratulations about that. And I really love the fact that from the beginning of this conversation, you highlighted something that I'm actually trying to explain to everybody. If you want things that others don't have, you have to do things that others don't do. When you said that you were, although a good English teacher or something, language teacher, that wasn't, you could have just called it a day. That could have been the end of the road for you. You could have stayed as an English teacher or language teacher somewhere and been it as it is, but you didn't. You decided to take another step and then another step. And this is what I tell people often: just start something, because once you start something, that's why I said it, you could have just called it a day and walk away. You didn't. When you start something, then you just go down the road. You can't stop. Once you start something, you can't really stop, because now it's in you. Now it's the snowball effect. Now you will go over there to finish a master, and then you will understand the statistics. Then you understand that you cannot rely on the statistics unless you've done it yourself. And then you understand that it's not only that, but you have to do more. You have to do the PhD and this and that. So once you start something, it's impossible. And trust me, I'm telling you, it's impossible to stop. Once you start, it's difficult to start. But once you start, you can't stop. So it's pretty perfect. And
yeah,
I'm very grateful that you're here, because you're an awesome example about this. And about the third question, how'd you get there? Reason I'm asking this question, and I'm sure you've noticed since you're into college and stuff like that, people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. And then because they have this stigma to get a diploma to ensure your future, which honestly is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, but it goes around. And they go to universities, they start something, they lose their time. And I don't really care about the money or anything. I don't know how things are in Asia. Here in Europe, the education's affordable, pretty affordable. You can go and graduate at a pretty affordable price. The problem is that you're losing time over there when you're not meant for education, when you're not meant for college and university. And what do we have? We have about 24, 25-year-old people, young people, that are starting jobs that are not for them because they graduated something that wasn't for them. I'm okay with losing money. I'm okay with losing friends and stuff. I mean, you've lost money. I've lost money. We've all lost some. Losing time, however, time is important. And time is the only resource we can't get back once we lose it. And I hate seeing this. And this is why I started the project. One of the main reasons, of course. So this is why I asked people, how'd you knew that this was the way to go?
yeah,
Because you
exactly.
obviously knew. You started this from quite a while.
Yeah, I like what you said about doing the same thing all the time. You don't want to be the person who does the same thing all the time. It's called conformity. And the moment that you conform, you don't progress anymore, and you have to do what the others do and pass your day and never have a bright future. So
You can't have any future, not only bright. I had a conversation with a neighbor of mine, and he got fired from his job. The company went bankrupt. And he said, well, I have 30 years of experience. I said, you don't have to. You have 1 year of experience, and you've been doing the same thing for 30 years. That's not 30 years of experience. You don't have nothing.
it's 1 year experience repeated for 30 years. That's
Yeah.
exactly the way it is. And if you have the skills, it doesn't matter whether you lose the job or not. People
Yeah.
want you to work for them, or you can have your own business. In fact, they don't want to lose you because you have the skills. So that's what I was thinking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as you noticed about the story that I was telling, everything formed progressively. It means every time I started doing something, I was thinking about the next thing to do. And I started as a language teacher, and that moment I was thinking about teaching language, and then I decided to be a researcher and language teacher because uh, I was just like everyone else. And then when I became a language teacher and researcher, I thought that, okay, there are also a lot of language teachers who are researchers. Normally, all those who have the postgraduate degree are also researchers. So it wasn't a special too. So I decided to be uh, a language teacher, researcher, and a statistician. And then eventually, when I got the job in Japan, as I said, I became interested in the science of language and became a linguistics after teaching uh, language for several years. So if uh, I want to describe my biography, I would say I am a language teacher, linguists, research methodologies with some uh, with some statistics expertise. So
All
that's
right,
the way
but
that.
and that's to get back to the original question. How did you knew that this was the way to go? And you kind of covered it already because you kind of had one step up, after another. But originally, you started as a language teacher. You covered it. You excuse me. You covered it. You wanted this when you were younger. My question is: was this a gut feeling? Were you influenced by something? What happened?
So to answer this question, um, if it is about being a language teacher, uh, yes, it was the maybe you might say that it's a gut feeling or whatever, but I would say mostly kind of inheritance because my father was a language teacher.
Nice.
So I felt kind of I inherited that. And I was interested in language learning since I was a child. I actually started learning some languages. I remember when I was very young, I tried to learn some other languages like
How many
Arabic,
languages do you
Italian.
speak, by the way?
Uh, my native language is Persian and I speak English, but I am also familiar with some other languages like Arabic, Italian, Japanese, and to some extent Malay.
Nice. It was pretty good, man.
Yeah, not bad. So I kind of had the idea of becoming a language teacher since I was a child. So when I wanted to pursue the career, when I was at the moment when I wanted to go to university and then get a job, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a language teacher. So being a language teacher was something that I knew I want since childhood. So it wasn't something that I developed over time. No, language teacher was what I wanted to be. But getting to this stage developed over time. And eventually I found myself being an associate professor at a university in Japan.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and I love how you knew it from the very, very start. Excuse me, I'm a little bit sick. I don't know, so it's probably the weather.
Yeah, that's
You know how it is. If you have some advice for the viewers, what can this advice be in a career segment?
okay. I can give the general advice and also a specific advice about my specific career. The
General.
general,
Let's start with the general. Let's continue with the specific then.
yeah, about the general one, I just quote one expression from Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And I like that idea that he says, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So whatever you can imagine, you can achieve it. Lots of people don't follow their dreams, but All
In
dreams are
all
achievable.
fairness, following your dreams is not always a good advice because, especially in today's world, way too much information and the young people's mind. I'm not calling them stupid. I'm calling them limited with experience. So if you don't know what you're doing, I don't think you should follow your dreams.
Yeah, sure. So if you have some dreams, if there is something that you would like to achieve, don't think that it is impossible. It's always possible. You just need to put the hard work and then follow it. You will
That's fair enough.
eventually achieve it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I got what I wanted to be. Since childhood, I wanted to be a language teacher. And then later on, I wanted to be a professor at a university. Of course, I'm also working more on what I'm doing. And I think within a few months, next month probably, I will get the title of full professor. And I'm not going to stop at this stage. I'm going to even work more and progress more.
Then I should have you back on the show as well.
Thank you. Sure.
What about the
And
specific advice?
yeah, if you want to be a language teacher, of course, what I did was an example of what I would say to do. Don't just be a language teacher. My suggestion is to be a researcher and language teacher, because you can teach for a long time, but you would know what is the best way of teaching when you actually conduct some research about methods of teaching. So that's the way that you can be a good language teacher.
You're 100% right, and I definitely agree with you. I knew it was going to be a pretty good episode. And with that said, Vahid, thank you for being with me, and thank you for being that good of an example.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Right on. Bye.
Bye.
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.